So please welcome Alan Brown to the show. Welcome, Alan.
Thanks so much for having me here.
Oh, you're welcome. And with that accent, everyone can tell you're from Australia. And it's an honor to, it's like having this podcast and meeting people all over the world and connecting and seeing the dots and how we all connect and how we're all finding each other. And it's like listening to your story and you sharing with me your journey and looking at it from a higher perspective and what drew you to where you are now is what I love. And what I love to see when people listen to their intuition and follow the path and pick up the breadcrumbs and see their magic and understand the purpose of why they came into this body as Alan Brown. So, Alan, with that, let us take us back, and you could maybe even before that explain kind of, how we got connected and, the magic that you're experiencing and, what I mean, I want you to go back to when you were little with your mom and the magic that she had. And, I think she played a big part in your life and opened your eyes and I think sparked something in you that realized that there's more to healing than just going to the doctor. Right. So go take it from
Absolutely.
where you want. You go.
Okay. Well, I loved well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. And
Excellent.
I love all the connections. Well, I love the connection between, I'm in Brisbane, in Australia, and I have such great friends, really soul friends in America. And I love the country, and it's been such a special part of my journey. And I loved how you said breadcrumbs, as we follow these little parts. And I guess I've seen, I guess all that made sense to me when I had an energy healing with my friend in America, about 5 years ago, all those little breadcrumbs just added up. Um, and so, yeah, I guess if I start with my mum and when I was a kid, I mean, I'm a chiropractor, first of all. I live in Brisbane. I've been doing that for about 30 years and I have three kids and a very wonderful and understanding wife who's been very supportive on this pretty crazy journey. Um, but yeah, if I go back to, I guess, when I was a kid, with one of the big driving factors for me to become a chiropractor in the first place was, I had really bad asthma, and my mum was really, really concerned because I was getting worse and I was on all sorts of medications. I was around the age of 4 or 5, and I was getting hospitalized all the time. And so she ended up getting recommended to this a guy he was called Bowen, Tom Bowen, and I don't think you know that technique in the States. It doesn't really matter, but
Mm-mm.
he was like an osteopath, but he didn't have that qualification. And anyway, we basically just did what he recommended, and we had some manual techniques and changed our diet, and it dramatically shifted. And so then mum totally just, jumped into the alternative aspects of things. And I think what was courageous at the time about that was that she really didn't get any support with that. Like she just did it because she wanted the best for me. And that's always stuck with me. And even with the result, it still didn't really generate a lot of support. So, sometimes we're so stuck in a paradigm or a ideology of things that we just don't even see the
Mm-hmm.
magic, like you say, when it actually shows itself. And that was magical for me. But at the same time, it was like a massive dichotomy because it was like, it was almost like, okay, well, it's kind of us against them a little bit. So I had that from a pretty early age. And so there was that sort of uneasiness with that, this mainstream thing that I didn't really trust at some level. And I've balanced that a lot better as since we've, as you said, followed the crumbs, and energy healing helped me do that as I've moved forward.
Right. So you going, along your journey and seeing your life, like I'm thinking like as a teenager, how old are your kids?
So my youngest is 15, and then my oldest is 21.
Okay. So mine are 16 and 19. And, as a dad. And looking now at your children when you were that age, what was your mindset when you were, because I look at my girls and think, we're growing this next generation and we're putting the tools in their, planting seeds in their little heads, right? But when you go
Mm,
back and understand your mom planting the seeds in your mind to like generate the passion in you to become a chiropractor and look at the healing aspect from what you learned along that path. Explain that journey of going into that, and because it hasn't been that long since you transformed into this energy healing, but it's all these breadcrumbs.
exactly, exactly. So, I mean, I was really passionate about chiropractic, and I loved it. I would say that the thing that wasn't there, it's almost like the energy healing was the thing that just tied it all together. So I guess there was some blocks to really getting that complete ease with everything that I was doing. I was very congruent with it because it just made sense, and I felt it was like a great thing. But it was highly, so much of it was challenging because you're always trying to prove yourself. Because you have that, like I said, that dichotomy. So there's a lot of that. At the same time, that was really important for me to really accept like it's taken a long time to build that back and forth and understand where it all fits together. And going through that process was really magical, and I can see the benefit of it. It was very challenging. I think the hardest thing I ever did was become a chiropractor because of that, and so desperate to get results. So you hang everything on your heart and your sleeve when you're a healer, and if it doesn't go as you plan, it's sort of heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot of that where you're trying to do the work for, I guess, trying to do the journey for some people. You're trying to help them because you want them to help them. So there's so much of that, so many things around all that, how you're perceived in public, all those sorts of things. But they were so important. And what happened was I guess if I jumped to then the energy healing, which I was at. So if I back up, I met this amazing friend of mine, Laurie Nealon, who I know that you know well, and I know that you'll have her on here eventually.
Mm-hmm.
And she's an amazing, incredible human being. And I met her originally at college. So our college is a little bit different to the American one, where you sort of all go to college. We have like colleges on some of our main capital city universities, and I was very lucky to go to one in particular in Brisbane because I met all my best friends there. Um, and so I met her there. And then fast forward, I hadn't seen her for years, and she'd made my family was very fond of her. We had some great connections, and my mum would send her Christmas cards every year. And
Oh,
so,
wow.
but it was like had it been, I don't know, 20, or I can't even remember. It was like 30 years or something since I'd seen her, 20 or something like that. Anyway, and it just my best friend who just lives up the road. She's an amazing woman. We travel with their family. We're all best friends, and we travel together. And we went over to America to visit Laurie. And she just, again, this is the breadcrumbs happening, and it was 2019 before COVID. And she mentioned something about, she was an energy healer, or I don't even know what she said, to be honest. I thought it sounded like something like kinesiology or something. So I thought, oh, that sounds interesting. And then the healing took place that absolutely just blew my mind. I mean, I didn't think it was even possible to know that that was possible, that could happen. And particularly for me, I just didn't think something like that could happen to me. I remember, like she said, I had a block at the top of my head and a bunch of other things, and literally that cleared, and I instantly had this connection to what I'd call God or the divine, whatever you're comfortable with. My grandfather was there. It was like all of a sudden, all those crumbs that you're talking about was just like God had been listening all along. And then from there, she just basically, took me to lay down on the table, and then spent a lot of the time just clearing these blocks to my heart. And it's hard to explain. I even know what that even is because I hear, people like Joe Dispenza talking about, opening up your heart and all these different things. I think you just don't know what you don't know when your heart's blocked, you know. And when that came off, I just didn't know. I was just going, what, like, what's left here? Like, and I remember 10, like, I think 10 minutes into it, I was like, just when I said to God, like, I get the picture. Like, you know, this is like, and the electric, this love energy that was just pulsating through my heart just changed the paradigm of what I thought, even how the world worked, you know. So,
Mm.
and from there, when you talk about those little breadcrumbs and all the things I had, I had all these different techniques I was using, but I always felt like I needed to do more. I always had to go and do another seminar. I always, you know, it was never enough, basically, you know. And all of a sudden, I just didn't need anything else. I was just, it just, and so one of the funny things was after I had that, I was thinking, you know, we did have COVID. So that's a whole nother story, but that wasn't pleasant. So we, you know, I had the healing, then I had COVID. So that put me in a position to cope with that. So I
Oh,
spent a
okay.
lot of time just connecting, you know, and, you know, carrying on with all the fears and so forth that brought out. And then at the end of that period, um, I just I went back and did that, and then got attuned, and I do integrative energy therapy, or IET, which I honestly think is a magnificent technique to help people do these things. Um, and I had the attunements, and then you know, the automatic analytical mind had me thinking, well, I guess how am I going to do this? I'm going to do this energy healing part separate to the chiropractic, and am I, you know, like, how do I need to put people into a separate room, because I'm absolutely desperate to bring this to people, you know. I've just, and it just automatically just started guiding me into everything I'd ever learned was now an energetic technique, you know. So it just added energy and became holistic. So in that light of that connection that I now had, everything became more holistic. Everything became more like intuitive. Everything gave me answers. You know, it was remarkable.
Wow. So I'm picturing you reuniting with Lori, not knowing that she did energy healing. And so that part of the story, that's new to me. So that's amazing. But when she takes you, when you go visit her and she brings you in, are you saying, show me what you mean by energy healing? Like, I need to understand that and what the process was to where she then put you on her table and does her magic and clear and realizes the block. Like before your life, like when you say your heart was so blocked, what describe even that of what life looked like before and what life looked after that session.
And they're great questions because, you know, if you think, like, I've got this big blocked heart, like, so you sort of think, well, what sort of traumas did he have? You know, like, did he
Yeah.
get all these different things? And to be honest, I think the really important thing is that I had a great upbringing. Even my religious upbringing was a good one, in terms of I didn't have any sort of, you know, like, I had a caring parents. It was, so it wasn't that. It was just the other parts of the journey, you know, our own unique lesson that had accumulated in terms of, I guess, the ideology of where I came from was just getting, uh, you know, questioned. It's things as I started, like that I guess the dogma of where I came from, which, by the way, I would never have a go at that. I know that was part of my, you know, they say the religious thing. I've extended from that, such an important part, expanded from it. So, and yeah, so that was a really important
Expanded,
part.
say that, explain that. Expanded from that in what
Well, I
and
guess I
explain that.
felt like, you know, is this okay to do this? You know, and it wasn't like I was like going to church regularly at this point in time. I'd sort of had, you know, I'd had that upbringing. I was very kind of, I hadn't quite found, I sort of was a bit lost in that arena, if you like. And so there was aspects, because I guess I had it more of an academic and analytical approach with how the rest of the spiritual, how things work spiritually. And you know, okay, so before this, I'd also seen a qigong healer, and this
A what
guy,
kind?
qigong,
Oh, Qigong. Yes.
sorry, there's the accent,
Yes. No, it's good.
oregano.
I
There's
know
some of
what
the, you know,
Qigong is. Yes.
there's a few of these different terms. We always have fun with this with the Americans. Um, and this guy had been practicing this stuff, right, for since he was born. He'd been kicked out of China because he was some political thing. He was an amazing guy, and so he does all this stuff. So I go see this guy. He does an energy thing. I felt my head sort of extend up to the sky, and it was done, and it was amazing. But the thing was, when I left, I just thought, well, I can't do that. That guy spent 30 years doing that. Do you
Right.
know what I mean? So that was it was almost limiting that experience because of
Hmm.
the, well, I'm not, I don't have the discipline that guy has. He's done that since birth. That's just a specialized, almost like the priesthood sort of thing. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
which was, part of just my interpretation of that. Doesn't mean it's true, but that's just how I felt. And so the, so going back to then Laurie, first of all, there's two parts to the magic. There's the energy healing, and there's the medium piece, right? And so, I that was new to me. And so she just is so open. She, you know, starts saying, yeah, they're showing me such and such a thing, and I'm like, okay, they're meaning, but as she says these words, like my analytical mind might that sounds weird, but the truth of those words was like my soul just going, that's true. So,
Hmm.
and that's what I love about when you're in the light. So I love to say to really convey that when you step into this light and connect to the light, your heart will let you know, and words just will ignite your heart, like, and that's, those words are so powerful. Sometimes those words are more powerful than the hands-on stuff. It's like
Hmm.
bang bang. And I've had those experiences where I'll say this is this, and your tears, people go, that's, when you hit that truth. So because she is open and so connected in a really important way, and I think it's important to talk about that intention and that love piece of all this as well, because I think that's so important on this journey.
Hmm.
um, so she's saying these words, these are truths. I know they're true because my heart's telling me that. They're just cutting through any blocks that would have been there. And, you know, and then we move down, and then she puts her hands on. Then it becomes more like I know that she's putting hands on me to do healing, but that's kind of how it went from start to moving into unblocking the heart.
Right. But how did your life feel after that?
Oh, after that was like this weight had been lifted that I just didn't realize was there. And then even since then, like, so I would say and I wanted that feeling in my heart, and it would come and go. And it's a bit like, I don't know if people have done like different meditations, and, I always remember I'd do Joe Dispenza's things or do some breath work, and I get this little feeling in my heart that felt good, but it was fleeting.
Right.
And it was, and often, it almost felt empty in there. Like it was like I'd cleared blocks, but getting that flow in there wasn't really happening. And even, I think it was it might have been the year before last now because time's sort of zipping by. But I remember saying to Laurie when I was doing my healings, like I could see things, I knew things were happening, and, I'd talk to clients, but I wasn't feeling this, what I wanted, what I had in that experience, like bits and pieces. And the more that I've done more working with the light and it comes through, now it just flows into the heart, and it's just my full guidance system. Like I just know, like, so if I say something that's truthful, if I hear say some like even when you said the crumb thing, I got, my heart expands. It's like there's this guidance system that kicks in that I never had before.
Mm.
And in that, I think it's really important. You can sort of throw some science in with this. It's like we have these things in our body that are meant to do this. And what the energy healing did was change my energy. This is my theory on that, and we can talk about some of this science stuff as well. But I think is really fascinating because these things are merging. This is no longer
Right.
just some sort of you know um, hippie kind of.
Yeah. Woo woo.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and it's transforming, and I'm loving, and that dichotomy is coming full circle, which has been like that, and that's why it happened. I think when it did, because even when I say it to clients, like if I said that 10 years ago, they'd like, I'm doing energy healing. Well, maybe not. Well, I don't know, 10. They'd be, oh, it would have been.
Yeah.
Now it's like, what? Oh, really?
Yeah.
So
I
it's a
bet.
lot more openness to this stuff, and my sensory experience of the world is different. Like, and you can't make that up. I mean, I like, I am your classic ADD brain guy who, and I don't even like that diagnosis, but everyone would have said that. I've never assigned that diagnosis, but I think it helps. I don't like diagnosis itself. It's limiting. So, but I use that term to explain where I was at. And so if someone feels like they can't do this stuff, but they really want to, I mean, you've got to want to do it and have that compelling, get connection to the divine. And when I say, get that connection in a way that is far more of a sensory into like communication. You've got all the clairvoyance, clairsentience, clairaudience. Like you can have a much more deeper connection with the divine that I didn't think was possible. And that's kind of my message. If I can do that, then anyone can, based on doing this kind of work.
Right. Okay. So when you say the divine, God, source, whatever you want to call it, what is the divine to you now when how you see it when you're doing your energy healing than it was when you were doing chiropractic before you integrated the energy? Is the divine a different, um, do you have a different relationship? Is it a different description? Could you describe
Yeah.
it the same?
Yeah. Beautiful question. And so it's really interesting because I just got shown the picture straight away. I was like, I feel part of it. Before it was like a separate thing that I was hoping to
Ah,
happen to someone. So now it
yes.
flows through me. I'm part of it. You know what I mean? Like, so there was a separation there. And I think, it's that idea that you're not worthy of, or you've done something wrong. And like, we've all, so that was the big thing. I think that guilt thing, and that's the one at the top of the head, right? That chakra where you go, you're not worthy of that, or you haven't really earned it, or whatever it is. There's so many blocks to that. And I feel like that's a lot of people's massive block, that how could I get something like that happening in my life?
Right. What is the difference in your relationship, like with your family, your wife, your children? How has that shifted?
Just everything's deeper. I mean, when I was one, so I mean, even going back to Laurie again, so she has this massive community. I mean, it's massive. And the impact is just rolling. I
Oh,
mean, it's
I'm sure.
and her family. I mean, the love in the family. And that just, I mean, we went over. We just had we obviously visited. We've had this incredible relationship with them. Our family absolutely adores them, and vice versa. And they've been over here. But one of the things when I'm getting taken around on these energy healing safaris, because that's what I get. I've been. It is like a 2 week safari of the greatest, energy healing lessons you could be getting. Um, when I first started this stuff, I'd be walking around and I'd be thinking, oh man, I just in my heart I was thinking how I would love to have that kind of soul connect with people. I just didn't feel like I had it. Like, and I've got good relationship. I've got really close friends. It was just that it was so much of it, and I felt like I couldn't do it. And the other part of it was, or I didn't have that even with I guess with my clients enough. There wasn't enough of that. And the other part of it was that people in a healing team, and that's another sort of area we could talk about, but they all had these psychic, like all these different abilities, these connective
Mhm.
abilities, right? And I just thought, are people in New England just more spiritually advanced? I mean, what's going on? Are we just so far behind, And so it was just like this massive, desire of wanting that and wondering what on earth was happening here. And what I was shown was that actually all those people were around me, that we just had to talk about and unearth it. And the other part was that once the energy flow started to flow through, just these relationships just started to shift gears, and people had come into my life, just a different, And so, I mean, it's been difficult for my wife initially. She's been incredibly supportive. I mean, to have a 180 on everything you're doing, and then, and she has just been kind of holding on, but so supportive, and she's kind of like a grounding force in all
Mhm.
that. And my kids have, I mean, they've loved seeing it happen. What I'm doing, and the journey that it's, they're very interested in that. So everything's been better for sure,
Yeah.
with
Right.
relationships as a
Yeah.
result.
So, you've listened to my episode with Rob Wergan, and I loved him. I love him. And then I meet Lori, and I'm just like, "Do you know Rob?" And she's like, "What?" And then you, and then so I'm saying like these dots are connecting, and I'm feeling it, and I'm like in this space now in my life that I've wanting to open a healing center, and I used to have a day spa when I was
Mm.
30, and I keep getting, this healing center, and I'm getting ready to take Reiki too, just for my own knowledge, not knowing where it's going to take me, but it's like me picking up the breadcrumbs because it was something that said, I think that would be an interesting experience to take that. And then meeting you and listening to your story and having that experience with Rob. And I've had people experience Rob from listening to the episode, like going to his Sedona healing things and just saying, "Oh my gosh!" But when I see the impact of these of you and all the people that surround you and who we know in common, I look at our life, I look at where we're at in this world right now, and how you say like 10 years ago, you people would have probably gone, okay, but now we're like, I'm wanting to, share this, that we have it all within us. I want to,
Mm.
I go to all these schools in San Diego and I have classes for children and I'm drawn to that. And I see that they're so close that they know it. And now they're starting to like fall from
Lose
it,
it.
you know? And I
Mm.
see it and it's just like, oh, I want to catch that before it starts to go, the opposite way. But so for me, I wanted for you to answer this question is like the frequency on this planet right now is shifting. Like we all know that that's pretty common talk right now in this world that we live in. How do you see energy healing in the like moving forward and like why do you say like now people are like, "Oh, you do energy healing?"
Yeah, for sure. Oh, look, I mean, the frequency is shifting massively, and so I think that's the other part of. There's a few things that you mentioned that I think are really important. The first one is that the shift in the energy that's available for people. Again, I come back to if you be people. I think a lot of people. I'm just coming from my own perception that you sort of think, well, how could I do that? I think all of this stuff's going to accelerate when people realize that they have that ability and it's more accessible as well because of this shift in energy. We're meant to be doing this to rise and use the things that were created within us or and have evolved in us. Like we're meant to, connect to our to God, whatever you want to call it. Like I'm comfortable with God because or the divine or love, and so that's all there, and those frequencies will help us, do that more and develop all those different uh, abilities that we have. So I think that's just happening. I mean, even people. I've started my own healing team now because one of the things that I got from the vision I had once I'd been healed and I've had this relationship with Laurie and we're going back and forth as I'm mirroring basically what she's doing there. And so I've started a healing team. And I feel like part of my purpose that I've been shown is to help people manifest what they love in life. So I'm aligning them to the spiritual purpose. And a healing team, one of the most powerful things we did, this is only our third month or something, we meet once a month, was I had people, we created a group vision board and they had to bring in one image that they wanted that they love. And so when I say, like, so what they want to manifest that they'd love to happen most in their life. And because we wanted to create more love in your life, right? So the one thing, what would you love more than anything? And it's the most powerful thing I've ever done. And so
Hmm.
as soon as you said about your center there, my mind automatically goes, hey, listen, just let's get together for 15 minutes down when you've got some free time and I can remotely connect you to get your vision board and I can enhance that massively. So the amazing thing about what I love about this vision with when you're doing energy stuff and a vision board is that it's no longer just a thing on the wall. You start feeling the energy of the thing coming back and forth into your field. Like mine just lights up and does all sorts of weird things. It changes. Like I can see it anywhere. It's there, and I get divine white light firing into me when I'm lining up with it. You know what I mean? It's such an interactive, amazing thing. I mean, it's like Harry Potter. I mean, it's crazy. Like, so it's sort of
Yeah.
it's like all my childhood things I loved when I was younger, like are true. You know what I mean? Like in that way, you know what I mean? It's like that stuff so magical that you can have this, and it's just trusting in that and going along, and getting the breadcrumbs, like you said, and much, yeah.
What was the thing? Like, what were people? What did they bring? Like, what were their?
They brought a whole thing. Well, first of all, the interesting one is there's always and this is really important. There's like this is really fascinating. So there's always people who had a block straight away. If you take 12 people, they've got an instant thing. I don't know what I want.
Hmm.
There's always a couple of people, and that's, we've all got our own individual blocks. That's always one of the first ones, right? And what was fascinating was the two people that I can think of right now that didn't just, it was like this block to what they really, really wanted. Once the group supported them, it's really fascinating. So where everyone's, I'm holding that, like they had to put it forward, like a couple of people in the group. And as we're doing it, I'm then getting from the group, certain people need to say something to support them, to help them bring this forward. Like it's the old story, like that Bible thing where two or more are gathered. The
Hmm.
power of that stuff is incredible. So as we're doing this, the two people I reckon that had the most lack of clarity or discernment, or just confidence to put that forward, what
Hmm.
they truly wanted, were the most important to underpin the group. Like, so, one talked about a house, and they just wanted to own their own home. And that was this massively. So what we do is they brought that forward, and then the energy shifted like massively, and everyone's going, whoa. And then we do a healing on them, with all the hands on that person as they connect to the vision board. And as they cleared all their fears and blocks, that the house was the foundational thing to the vision board. Like, so that everyone was grounded, because house is safety. So it was like,
Right.
so it was massively like this huge energetic shift for those people. So the dynamic of these things doing in a group is an incredible thing to do. And I feel like that's probably, as I'm being shown as I'm going, is that's kind of what I might be setting up, as helping people do that in groups, because that's where it's going to have much more impact, and people really stepping into what they love. And the more love, the better they're connected and all that.
Right. So you come, I want to know, there's stories that you have about visions that came to you. Like give examples of the magic stories that you started experiencing when you realized that over after Lori's session and you started getting the vision and you're going to mirror her and you're it's like animals or there's something that you started
Yeah, that was,
seeing.
yeah. So it was almost like I said the word safari when I go over there for a few. I've had these multiple, I think we've done about three of these 2 week, you know, intense sessions where, she's taking me around her healing team. Rob Wergens has been involved with all that. And I've been incredibly lucky to get, involved in every one of the healings he does. Then I'd get pulled up, and he had me, doing all that. So I'm, absolutely energized with so much energy. I didn't know it was, like it would just open me up so much. And then these visions would just come straight away. So at night time, like when I'd be at Laurie's house, I'd be just going on some sort of walkabout, of learning, saying things to myself, trying out, like getting shown that say this to yourself and what it would do to my body. And just like, so that was just, so this was kind of going on. And then when I got home, I just started, like, I'd literally be at work, and I just couldn't wait to get home at lunchtime, because I'd sit down and I would literally just start seeing visions that were so, it was like watching TV. And so that was just kind of like something I'd never ever experienced. And so one of them, one of them was definitely showing how it was a feminine energy coming through, because we've got our right side and left side of our body, and the right side's the analytical. And I'd had this massive experience with Mary sort of opening up my left side to become more intuitive and balancing that out. And there was one day where literally there was a bunch of things I was seeing, and all of a sudden I got pushed to the side as these two, and I'm standing up, and I got knocked as these two lionesses came past me. I mean, and that sounds like, I mean, it just sounds ridiculous telling you that in some ways, but it was just so incredibly like real. Another one was like like manifesting this massive building came out. You can see that blue. Can you see that building
Yes.
that I've got? So I drew that picture after I was working on my healing table one day, and on myself. I just do energy healings on myself, and I just had this massive building, blue building, erupt out of. And of course, you see these things, but you know what they mean, because so it doesn't. You're sort of getting shown all these things at once, and it was like building this, building this,
Ah,
this this thing of abundance. Like, but and the importance of spreading, like, I see sunflowers as joy. Like, so it'd just be like this huge, like building this thing that's meant to come, and I'm supposed to help facilitate it. But they were really compelling visions, like where they're interactive. I could reach up and touch something, and that hasn't happened so much of late. But one of the funny things probably was when I was working on people, I just would go through like a buffet of what things meant. So, it started like I might see different images of vegetables, and I go, "What on earth does that mean?" So it'd be showing up in someone's liver, and then I'd look up, spiritual meaning of broccoli, spiritual meaning of asparagus, and so I'm getting all these different. It's almost like I've been educated in all these different ways people might see things. It could be numbers. And so they'd go through and I see a number here and I go, what does that mean? I'd look that up. And it was just all these different things that I was shown. And then another example was I had two people come in a very short amount of time. It's never happened before since. And we cleared something, we cleared them, and, I adjusted them, and they walked out and they were great and they felt connected. They walk out to the reception and boom, they just have this big painful thing happen where they're locked up, right? And they can't move and they're in pain, they're staggering around. Two people in 1 week. And so, I was feeling fairly connected. So lucky I had my energy healing hat on and not went into fear and thought, oh, what have I done chiropractically to them? Because, like that, if I'd done that, it would have not been pretty. I bring them back in. I sit them in a chair. I put my hand on their heart. In 10 seconds, the pain's gone. They're back to normal, right? And I said to them, what did you think about when you went out to the reception? And I just remember one said money, which was a state of stress. So whatever they had stressed about just came back. And so they had this massive onset of pain. But what it taught me was, and then them, that you get this clearing from an energy healing, but you then need to change your work is to then work at that mental frequency, like what you're thinking about, because that affects your energetic fields. You've got your physical body, you've got your emotional fields, the next one mental, and then obviously spiritual in terms of those fields around your body. But I had two people literally in a week where they went into agony pain. I cleared them in 10 seconds and they learned that lesson. So did I. And it was totally just to teach me these things as it was happening. That's my
Right.
belief anyway.
Right. So when people come to you and they come as you're a chiropractor, and maybe they're not open to and understanding what energy healing is, so their intentions aren't really, there as far as open, they're not open to that.
Yeah.
What do you do in that situation?
So I'm like, because I'm a chiropractor, so I think, if you can bring the science of this though to a point of purpose first. So like I always say to people, you've got this problem. We talk about their symptoms. We go through, what's it doing? We go through all the medical stuff, all the stuff I have to do regulatory and for their, just to understand what's going on. But one of the things we want to establish is, you know, what do you love in life? Because, if you look at the things like the blue zone communities, what's the main, I mean, obviously the biggest factor is social support, but also they live in purpose. So, people again, quite often will be, why are you asking me that? Like, I mean, I don't like, it's almost like it doesn't even come on their radar. So we might just, first of all, establish that they don't, they want to get back to playing golf. So that's okay. Golf is where their happy space is. And that's good. That's where they love to be. So we want to then get them from a functional level back to that. And as the conversation goes, we might then say, hey, what else do you love doing? And I'm lining them up with that. And so that's one way we could do it in a slow way. Other times it's just they're meant to be there for that reason. And very rapidly that will be, that can also be established where they just sort of almost don't know why they're there. It's almost like, they almost say that. And then, we do something and all of a sudden things start moving around. They go, what just happened? And we have a conversation and, I'll say, well, the pain there is because of the, your emotional experience from this or whatever, so it sort of can go in different ways. And then of course there's some people who just, I'm just going to take good care of them however they want. And that may not be in that way. I don't think everyone is necessarily, their journey is not necessarily going to be, like yours and mine in that way. Everyone's got their different journeys. But I think,
Right.
I think there's a heck of a lot more people, looking and heading that way.
Right. Explain the science behind it. Because, I always am under the feeling like we heal ourselves. You're
Mm,
the healer is there, but the person is healing themselves.
mm,
We have the power. We scrape our knee and our body's healing. It's true
yes.
right there. Will
Yeah.
you explain the science and how you describe that to someone that's trying to understand what energy healing does and what you are doing in that session?
Yes, I mean, first of all, like I start from that brain body connection with Cairo because that's what it's about. It's like, so like if they say they've got a pain down their leg, we're going to start with people start from pain oftentimes because that's what they've come in for. So we're going to
Right.
start from that place. So, you got, the nerves in your lower back, control down that leg, and there could be a problem there. So we're going to have a look for that and see if there's something there. And then obviously, if we take a step next from there, we know that, the thing that controls all this healing, when we talk about just from, a structural perspective, that nervous system is in charge of healing and our experience and all those things. So we want to get that connection going on from that perspective. And then, when we talk about healing, when you use that example of you've cut your knee and then your body's healing all the time. It's generating these cells. Your brain's controlling that, and it's controlling those building blocks of that repair everything. And so about every 6 weeks, we get a new liver, and so that's a process happening all the time. That can get interfered with. Now, I'm not going to go into this obviously with someone on the first visit, but I'm just
Right.
starting off. I introduced that that the brain body nerve where we want to take pressure off that so the body so you can function better, and then we want to people and to be honest, people don't care about that anyway. What they want to that they want to care about, that we're going to sort out that problem, but also really for them to even start to understand that, they need to experience it. And so there's no way. I mean, when Laurie did that healing on me, and I went from that. Can you imagine going to Chicago for a boys' weekend
Oh,
that I'd been planning for months? And so I'm just sitting there going, oh my God, I've got to go and get like drink and all this. I'm thinking that's the
Jesus.
last thing I want to be doing. Like and when I and anyway, I think I get angelic help through that because it didn't take away anything and all that sort of stuff. But at that point, I said to one of my friends what I experienced, and he just dismissed it. He didn't, and I didn't care, but like that's where he was at.
Right.
And we had a boys' weekend about 2 weeks ago. And on the Saturday, it was a completely different boys' weekend, by the way. And on the Saturday, he said, "Hey, Alan, could I have one of those energy healings?"
Oh.
And it was profound. And so he's now on that journey. And that's so
Oh.
all these guys and we've come from this, very boyo sort of boyo weekends, and we're heading this direction now because of this the light.
Oh.
So getting back to what healing is, that there's the healing of that science, cells getting replaced. That's our nervous system. Healing is also getting us back to connected to what we truly want to be connected to, our soul and the divine light. And so when I'm here, like my wife always jokes about like, but there's nothing wrong with me, and that's true. There's nothing wrong with you. We just want to get rid of the things that are getting in that are blocking you being who you are. And so I love that. I don't know it word for word, but that Deepak Chopra quote: "An awakening is letting go of what is not you."
Right.
That, or
Yes.
clearing what is not you, and that's so
Mhm.
energy. Like we accumulate these blocks or traumas that are in the tissue of our body that gets stored in there. Information gets stored, and it gets in the way of us expressing who we are, or we compensate. And sometimes that compensation is our journey. You know what I mean? Like the thing
Mhm.
that, I mean, really, it's the 360, right? When you've realized what you've done, but you've achieved all this stuff in your life that happened because of the trauma, and now you can just let that go because you don't need that
Right.
experience. You know what I
Exactly.
mean? There's that kind of aspect to it. So there's healing, but ultimately that's my sort of definition, is connecting you to the divine, so that you're in flow with that. And then
And you're doing that energetically when someone's on the table, you're connecting them.
Yeah, so like I'll obviously do my Cairo things, but I'm always putting my hands on them, and I tell them I'm doing some energy work on them just to balance that. Now, from a science perspective on that though, so what's the science that we have about that? Well, number one, I mean, I don't know, you're familiar with heart rate variability.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Yes, I've heard.
basically like, yeah, so it's like a great metric for the best metric there is really for well-being. So if someone's feeling like in a spiritual state, if they've got good cardiovascular fitness, if they've got a really good immune system, all those metrics like that is reflected in high heart rate variability. I mean, and I was measuring my heart rate variability before I got my healing, and it went through the roof. Like, and that has really been shown with energy healing that it does enhance that. So from a science perspective, we're putting things in sync. And if you think about, there's your heart is the biggest electromagnetic force that's just gyrating through the whole body. It's regulating everything else. So when it's out of whack anyway, everything is going to be out of whack. And so putting my hands there is definitely something that I do on most people. And we get that regular, so we're getting that energy balance so that then that synchrony starts to happen, so they relax. They just feel that, those I feel really relaxed after that. So at that basic level, I start there. And then I just start. Then the beauty, I guess, of because of all the years of experience of chiropractic, I used to, because I was so caught up in show and tell and proving myself,
Mm-hmm.
what will happen now is I'll do an energy thing. I say, hey, listen, check this out. You see how you're weak there? That's an emotional block. And then I'll get them to say it's caught in their liver or whatever that's making them go weak. I'll say, put your hand there. And then I'll go strongly. Go, what? How does that happen? And then I won't do any physical thing. I'll just do some, energy healing on that and then retest them. I go, what? So it's so they experience that. So I have so many of those show and tell things because I spent 20 years trying to prove myself.
Right.
I've just got, but it's funny, I don't actually think of doing those things. I get shown, hey, do that for them. You know what I mean? So it's sort of like this thing that I've let go now. I don't need to do it, but then it'll get shown to me, this is show that limiting belief there, and I'll do it. And then, you know, the person, can experience it better.
But when you had your session with Lori, that's when all those abilities, she opened up all those abilities because before you weren't like connected like that. Like you didn't have your like clairvoyance and all the.
Yeah, so look, I definitely had a massive download for about 3 or 4 months after that, because remember we had COVID, and so there's a lot of fear that I think that shut down a lot of that stuff. I would say I didn't know how to regulate it. It was all over the place. I was getting a surge of just, it was like my friend said it was like a Kundalini awakening. I don't really know exactly what that is. I get the concept. I was getting hit with what I needed, I guess, at the time. It was profound for months, really. And then it kind of, backed off a bit because I had the stress of COVID. Really, I couldn't. I certainly I wasn't in good flow. I couldn't see. I did have visions, but it wasn't like after I got the attunements with IET, which when she did all those, then all those things really just became more like I really like just developed ways of, I guess, manipulating energy, letting it in, and being more connected with it. And I've often thought about, what is an attunement? Like, why would that happen?
Mhm.
I think it's a great science question, and I did mention that we've actually been involved in a science thing we can't talk too much about yet because it's in the making in terms of there'll be a study come along, but my theory is that the attunement is like an ancient you know ceremonial thing that we do as part of IET, but it changes your energy field in a way. Then if you continue to do the work, your nervous system then starts to change how it behaves, because the more I've done it, the more I get better abilities. So, and that's one of the things they say in the book. It's like it's permanently open, but then you have to, the more you do it, the more that you get these abilities. And so, I just see more. I see, and it's been more consistent, I would say, rather than just getting hit with this thing for 3 months and then it kind of died off as the stress built up.
Right. So when you say, so what do you do? Like, do you have a certain practice that you do every day to, like, before you see a client, that to raise your frequency, to get in alignment with source or God?
Yeah, I would do. I guess I just connect to my heart really now. I think I've sort of like I love doing ceremonial things, so I've got my own, and I think that's a really good thing for people to do. I think you should try and be guided and have your like my vision board's massively important. I've got my pictures I showed you on the wall that I channeled, and then I've got sound bowls, and I've got sage, and I've got crystals on a healing table, and I'll just I might do a healing on myself. But to start the day off, really, I would just connect into my heart and again get that in like connect to God and all my angels or whoever I'm want to connect with for that day. But most of the time it's just connecting to my spiritual support group, which I can do pretty quickly, and then ask for protection and fill my field up with light. I mean, that's kind of what I do generally on the way to work. And then I think everything I'm just doing my health regime is really just about supporting that because the more healthy you are, the better you're going to get connected, right? So exercise, I think it's important. Whatever exercise you do, start with your intention
Hmm.
of being in the light when you do it, because quite often you can sort of get into the habit of doing something you love, like gardening or exercise, and you start thinking about what's bugging you,
Hmm.
and that affects your field. So there is a discipline there to keep in the light, but one of my so really my main message to people when I'm teaching IET and when I in my healing team is I'm not interested in anything else but the light. And the more that I step in the light, the more it's easy. It just comes in there like that neurological thing. It's like a habit. It just gets more and more, and there's just more and more love. Everything just fills up more and more because I just keep going back to that. Give it to me. Give me more of this.
Yeah.
This is what I want, and that's what Rob you'll see says that too. Don't be specific with what you want, and I would say that's the thing that I love most about where all this started with Laurie is by example. She was just so in a place of love by example, the way family, her community, everything. The example was so that's like that helped me expand from the religious perspective that because you've got this fear. Am I doing something that this could not be right? And to the point where I remember going through that, I was expanding from the Christian perspective to other, like widening that view. Was I went for a run and I said to Jesus, I just want to know I'm doing the right thing. And I just got absolutely pounded in the heart with love, like, and that was just
Hmm.
like that. I was just, then from there I just opened up, and I mean, I come from an Anglican perspective, which is, kind of doesn't involve, like, it had a different, I guess, view on Mary. And I'd say Mary's probably been more influential from that, which is kind of funny because,
Yeah.
I had a different view on Mary, like, so I've had some amazing experiences with Mary.
Right. Huh. Neat. We're coming to the end, but I want you to share, like you mentioned, and actually when I spoke with Lori, is it the Jill Shaw Foundation and what they're doing together? I went and looked on the website, but I just feel like the world is coming to that.
Yeah. Look, Jill's just amazing. I mean, and obviously people I guess, rallying around Laurie from a perspective of the influence that she's had with that channeling of that beautiful light and the impact that's had, and they want to get that out, and that's happening as it's meant to. But the amazing thing when I talk about that dichotomy, I mean, I was just incredible when she started talking about this whole science thing started. I just thought, because I've always been compelled about the whole science thing,
Hmm.
but I didn't know what that would look like. And then so to take part in this whole science thing on probably the most, you know, far like left of field thing, like in terms of like a remote healings and all this sort of stuff. And so, yeah, it was an amazing thing. So they're doing this. So Jill Shaw's just they started this foundation where they're going to be, it's the, it's called, what did you say the name there? Yeah, it's the Center for Comprehensive Healing.
Okay.
And yeah, so they're doing research on all these different modalities to help people heal in the context of Boston Hospital too. You can jump on the website there. Um, and it's just incredible work. And yeah, Laurie's, going to be, involved with all that, and Jill's just doing an amazing job with that. And incredible, amazing scientists involved who are humble and amazing people, like all of them. Like so, it's like, and I think that's the most amazing thing um, about it is they're not. It's the ego thing just
Yeah.
isn't there.
Mm-hmm.
It's
100.
massively
Yes.
humble.
And I mean, I look at Rob, I look at you, I look at Lori, I've Pamela Anderson. Do you know Pamela?
Mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm interviewing her in a couple weeks. But
I
it's
love her
like
show too.
there's no it's just so authentic and love and real, and I realize, like, even like listening to you and learning about you before, and it was like, oh, I just can't, like, there's a resonance that I feel. And it's I know it's going to be the breadcrumbs that I keep picking up so I can understand what
Yeah,
that means, but
yeah.
right now I'm just like absorbing the love and the resonance, the authenticity, the we're here to as a service, that's like my highest. I know that's my joy when I know I'm doing that, like serving, like I that just fills my heart so much. And that's what I feel when I see you or when I meet. I mean, it's just I think I resonate with that because that's where I love that. Like, it must be just a reflection because I really
Mm.
get that feeling when I see you or when I first met you on the video. I was like, oh, there we go. Of course, mirror of Lori. It's
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
amazing. But let's end with telling people like what you're doing right now, what's lighting you up, how they can find you. Do you remote view? Do you remote heal?
Yes, yeah. I do a lot of remote healing.
Okay.
But yeah, like so, you can jump on our website, which is just bluealionchiropractic.com.au is my website, and you can find out all our details there. Or I guess they could reach out to you. I can give you my personal email as well. Um, yeah, and like I can certainly do remote healings or any of those sorts of things, or even when we can keep you up to date with what's happening in the States and events that may come up as well.
Will you be flying over here anytime soon?
I believe so. I have no idea when. This year. I feel like it's going to be this year. Something always comes up. It just comes out of nowhere, and all of a sudden I'll be heading over there. So we're just sort of waiting to see what lines up. But
Right.
I can't wait. I love coming over, and you know.
Yeah, there's something to me too. I feel is that when you said that, because I was thinking, oh, I'd love to meet Lori and you and Rob all in one event or have something. And Lori's was like, yeah, Rob's coming, and um, he always calls me to come and be part of the event. And I was like, oh, sign me. That's what I want to be there.
Mm.
It's a calling. It's a calling. And I'm just going to keep picking the breadcrumbs. We've talked about that so much. I might as
Yeah,
well
yeah,
say it
yeah, yeah,
again.
yeah. And it'd be great to have something over in your way for sure.
Yeah. Oh, it's been so fun, Alan. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. It gives me, what you are for me is when I know my intention is clear of what I'm really interested in or what's calling my soul, and you come into it, it's like, thank you, God, for showing me another sign. Like, you're that. And it's
You
amazing.
think, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel that too.
Yeah. I love it. All right. You get to go on with your day since it's the morning, and I will go on with my evening and enjoy your day. And I know we'll be connected for sure forever. And I'll see you
Yeah,
again.
thank you. I'll look forward to seeing you sometime soon.
Yes, thank you.